As a teenager growing up in Macon, Georgia, Jason Aldean dreamed of a future as a country music superstar. But after years of driving big rigs and playing small-town gigs, Jason all but gave up that dream.
How close did you come to quitting?
I was extremely close.
So what pushed this country kid to challenge the very genre he loved, grind out a career of hits, and come back from witnessing a national tragedy in Las Vegas? All while maintaining his course to breaking big. What makes people successful? What are the unexpected turns in life that propel people to greatness? I'm Carlos Watson, editor of OZY. I'm out to uncover the real secrets behind breaking big.
I don't necessarily make music based on what I think my audience is gonna like. I make music based on what I like and what I wanna go out and perform every night. If I like these songs and I can relate to what they're saying and I wanna go out and sing them every night, there's an audience out there that's gonna feel the same way.
You like the way that sounds?
Man, I love this spot.
Yeah, we've been here, I guess, for about a year and a half or so. My life is so hectic on the road, and I found this place, and I didn't even get to the house. I just looked over and saw the creek, and, you know, I look around now, and believe me, I'm very aware of how fortunate I am, and it's cool because I've been able to pay back my parents for helping me out all those years and kind of giving me a kick in the butt when I needed it, so.
They must be proud.
I hope so.
Yeah, that's gotta feel good.
We grew up with country music in the house. You know, I listened to a lot of Alabama, you know, Dottie West and Kenny Rogers and Larry Gatlin and the Gatlin Brothers. We always had family get-togethers. They were always singing and playing instruments and all, and Jason wanted to be right in the middle of it.
My dad and my uncle would sit in the living room, and they sang like Merle Haggard and George Jones. And really, I started wanting to sing just so I could sit in the room with those guys.
His daddy always loved music, and even after Barry and I divorced, our families still remained friends, listening to music and playing music. His dad was always involved in his life.
He bought me this little cheap guitar and just said, if you learn to play, I'll buy you a nice guitar. But to me, being a huge baseball fan, I'd rather watch baseball. So every night I watched the Braves, and baseball had always sort of been what I thought I was gonna do.
All through school, he would be playing 3 different ball teams. So in Georgia, Jason wanted to pursue baseball. But in the summer, he would go and spend with his dad.
You know, I was down at my dad's house down in Florida, and I was kind of bored. You know, he'd be at work, and I really didn't have anything else to do. So I started trying to learn songs, and you look up and you've been doing it for 5 or 6 hours straight. A couple months later, I was teaching him stuff, and so true to his word, he bought me a nice guitar. And I think that's how you learn and get better. You got plenty of time to practice.
Yes, talent, that's a contributing factor, but we should also talk about the fact that he would practice for 12 hours a day in 9th grade and 10th grade and 11th grade. So when you see people who are at the top of their field, I think part of it is talent, but another part is practice and thought about the craft.
It didn't take long before Jason was ready to turn those hours of practice into action. And at 14 years old, he began playing on stage.
I started getting into some talent contests, trying to get out and just see how good I really was compared to everybody else.
Money was tight with us when Jason was growing up. As a parent, I worried about him, you know, and I worried about where things were headed and how things would end up. It wasn't until he first started performing that I realized that he was very talented.
I started winning some of those talent contests. I started to realize, like, I can go play my music in bars and not have to go to school. That sounds great. So, so that was kind of the beginning. So I was trying to find a job that would allow me to take off when I wanted to, and because I was playing shows. So I worked at Pepsi. I had a friend of mine that worked there in Macon. I got to be on the truck, riding around all day. I was listening to Garth and McGraw, and then when you don't like what's playing, you go, let me see what's on the rock channel. Okay, I like that one. Started listening to Bob Seger and the Allman Brothers and Otis Redding. He was from my hometown, so.
You know, actually, I was going to ask you about that because Macon has been home to, as you said, the Allman Brothers, a bunch of other folks.
I definitely think I was influenced by those guys a lot. They were guys that went out and worked the circuit. And so I put a band together and we just kind of started going and doing that. You know, I had a band and we were playing in my hometown, but I knew there was more to the world than Macon, Georgia. So we went out and started playing Georgia, Florida, Alabama. Got in the studio, got a few songs we had written. And then next thing you know, I'm on stage playing those songs at a club called the Buckboard in Atlanta.
After a few years of long hauls and dive bars, Jason's unique style and voice finally got recognized and would earn him his first big break.
Back in 1998, country music was very kind of tame, very structured, very formula. But Jason got up on stage, he had his cowboy hat pulled down, he had his big belt buckle, his shirt was tucked in, you know, but they were singing very aggressive music. And that's what was great about it. He was just rocking real hard like it was Motley Crue, but they were singing traditional songs. And I'm like, man, this is great. So that night I walked up to him at the Buckboard and I said, man, I love what you do, and I probably look like a kid too. And he just goes, well, where are you from? And I said, with Warner Chappell. And I didn't know this, but later his mom was like, he didn't know who Warner Chappell was, he didn't know who you were, anything.
It's like, man, I'd like to do this and I'd like to do that and get you to Nashville. And by this time I'd heard that a lot and it had never turned into anything. So I was just kind of like, oh, here we go again, another one of these guys, you know.
And then when I found out he was from Macon, Georgia, and I was from Macon, Georgia, that made it interesting. So I hung out and talked to him and sat in his truck. He had Alabama's Greatest Hits. He had Lionel Richie, Backstreet Boys, Guns N' Roses. And then he had Merle Haggard. And when I saw that, I said, man, give me a CD. So he gave me a CD where he was wearing a cowboy hat, had, you know, his long hair, and was wearing a sweater. You know, it was very, very, very cool. Not.
The evolution of country music is good. Country has evolved since day one. As recently as the 1980s, we had kind of come out of a Kenny Rogers era, Dolly Parton era in the 70s, where, you know, Alabama, the band, was looked at as, you know, heretics. They were long-haired and they were, you know, they were loud. Different interpretations of music, of popular music, is a good thing. Otherwise, we'd be listening to the same damn song for the last 100 years.
So I rushed home from work that Monday, nothing, you know, no phone call. And I'm like, of course, don't hear anything for a few days.
So when I got to Nashville, I called him and
get home and there's a voicemail. And he had called me and called him back, and he wanted to sign me to a publishing deal writing songs. I moved to Nashville right before I turned 22.
Nashville, in terms of country music, really is the epicenter. All the record labels are here, Sony, Warner, Universal. Every artist wants to come to Nashville and get a record deal and get played on the radio. That's the brass ring.
he rose really fast to the opportunity. When we brought him in the studio, man, he sounded so good. MCA offered him a deal off 4 songs. Then the guy at MCA left and went to Capitol, so then he went to Capitol and signed Jason. We had a deal within 6 months of him being in Nashville.
And that really kind of started it. And then for the next 7 years, it was a roller coaster ride.
While Jason learned to write and play music, he hadn't yet been exposed to the harsh realities that the music industry would soon teach him.
Well, he was young, So he could have had some misconceptions about what was going to happen. I know often artists come to town and they think that all your dreams will come true, but it certainly doesn't work like that most often.
I do know at the time Nashville was a little bit of a different game. You had a lot of boy bands that were hot, so they were trying to, make artists sort of look like a boy band member.
They had Keith Urban at the time. They had some other things, and they wanted him to maybe not have his cowboy hat on. They wanted him to be a little more cautious.
I'd always wear boots and jeans, and it was like, take the hat off, and I just wasn't that guy. I wasn't comfortable doing that stuff, and I was dropped from the label. It was hard. When you get dropped from a record company, you're almost kind of like blacklisted. All the other labels are like, all right, well, something's wrong, He must have got dropped for a reason.
It was his first introduction to the big game, and it really set him back. Then we got to start over and do it all over again.
Probably the most important factor in success is to be resilient. If one recognizes implicitly or explicitly that I've been down before and I've gotten up, and that success again isn't a straight line and there are many paths to success, it's much easier to move forward.
Having now faced his first major setback in his career, Jason would have to decide if he was going to keep fighting for his shot or pack it in and go home.
You're now 23. You had a big-time shot, and it seems to disappear on you. Then what?
We were just trying to get another deal.
My job was to keep him as busy as I can keep him around town. Anything to keep his attitude in the right place. So I booked him down at the Wild Horse every Monday night at 6 o'clock. I kept his band in rehearsals every week, and I kept him writing. But then in 2002, Warner Chappell sold, so I got let go. And that's where the dark times hit. I would buy him gift cards so he could go eat.
We were playing showcase after showcase, trying to get these labels to come, and we would have all these labels telling us they would be there. Yeah, we're coming, we're interested, we'll come see the show. Nobody would come.
He came home one time, and so many people were closing the doors in his face, and he said, "Mama," he said, "I think I'm gonna give it up."
He actually called me. He said, "I'm about ready to come back home. I'm about ready to give up." He said, "I may need you to, help me out." And he'd made another call to another buddy of ours and told him the same thing.
He was working at this factory in Georgia. It's like one of the better paying jobs, back then. And I said, "I'm moving back home. I got a couple things I got to finish up here, but I need a job." But I had a couple more shows that I had to do in Nashville, and one of them was a showcase. I started playing and played till I was yelling and screaming and like it was the last time. And sure enough, Broken Bow Records was at the showcase that night. They weren't a big player in town, but they were getting songs played on the radio. And my thing was, if you can get my songs played on the radio, I'll do the rest of it. And I walked backstage, and the head of the record label says, "Welcome to Broken Bow Records."
You like the way that sounds? Little Jimmy Jackson is jacking up his Bronco.
The first single came out April of '05. The first time I heard it on the radio, I was going over to my friend's house to play PlayStation. Grabbed a 6-pack of beer and I was headed to his house, and I was like, cranked it up.
We were headed to the beach and heard Hicktown on the radio. And I was like, that's pretty cool. That's when it kind of set in, like, he didn't have to come back.
I was in the car, and to be honest with you, I couldn't tell you the words as I cried the whole way through it.
I was running music in town at Country Music Television at CMT, and Jason's music video for Hicktown came across my desk. And if you look at the video, it sort of grabbed the essence of our audience.
People forget about small town America. The first thing I saw, the first festival he played, man, the crowd, there would be lines waiting to meet him. That's what he is. His music is small town America. It's red dirt, it's working class, it's day-to-day people.
And that was really kind of what got my career off and running and got us out there. And I mean, for about 5, 6 years, I mean, we went out and played over 200 shows a year.
In 2005, with that single, Jason Aldean burst onto the scene and introduced the world to a whole new sound of country music.
Jason started writing his material, and he still does, but he's also become expert at finding good songs. Along with Michael Knox, together they have kind of a golden set of ears. They're able to really find hits.
Hicktown, Amarillo Sky, Why, You're the Love I Want to Be In. Those were all the songs we were performing for record labels where they said, there's no hits, but then we sold more, and then we sold more, and we were gold by 12 weeks. His fans were buying the product because he's one of them. And if you go to one of his shows and look out in the crowd, you go, I get it.
His secret sauce is just being Jason Aldean. And growing up in Georgia, I think really had a big effect on what Jason became. He's still, you know, the guy wearing jeans and the hat and the boots, and it's all natural for him. It's not a facade. It's not something that, you know, there was a focus group that said, oh, we think Jason should look more like this, because that's only gonna get you so far. You might have the 1 or 2 hits, but you're not gonna have, you know, 10, 20 years of songs and records and selling out stadiums.
As in any industry, those who take risk are often the ones who shine. And it would be Jason's willingness to take risks and challenge expectations of country music that would lead to his next big hit.
Yeah, I'm chilling on a dirt road, laid back, swerving like I'm George.
Jason, at that time, he was like, oh, we can go another step. The record label still was afraid of it. People were very afraid of it, you know, because it's a rap song.
Back in the day, Potts Farm was a place to go. Load a truck up, hit the dirt road, jump the barbed wire, spread the word. Like the
Many people hated Dirt Road Anthem. Country purists thought it was, you know, it was the musical equivalent of the devil.
I knew Brantley Gilbert, him and Colt Ford. I knew their version. It was a pretty popular underground thing down in Georgia. So I brought it up to Jason, and I said, dude, we gotta cut this song. And nobody really knows this, but the take he did is one take. It was very, very organic and very genuine to him.
Jason's decision to record Dirt Road Anthem could have been disastrous, but instead, he was able to turn it into a monster hit. And I think it's important to point out that country music has a very long history with spoken word, all the way from Hank Williams to Johnny Cash, or what some would describe as rap, which it may or may not be, depending on what your ears hear.
We were all sort of like, ooh, okay, I don't know. We're definitely stepping out there. But every time we've done that, he's succeeded. And so we've gotten to the point where we know it's like, yeah, we need to push the envelope. His fans expect it from him a little bit.
Country music fans, especially nowadays, I think we all kind of grew up listening to blues, R&B, hip-hop, rock.
That's why it wasn't a big stretch for us. All the country boys in the Southeast are brought up on country music and R&B and rap.
Not like that's any new idea. I think generationally, those lines get blurred more and more.
I grew up listening to everything, man. If I could figure out how to play a Snoop Dogg song on guitar, I would figure it out, you know what I mean?
By 2011, Jason had become a platinum-selling artist with 4 albums under his belt. It was then that he got a chance to play in the stadium that he'd worshiped since childhood.
When I walked into the stadium, he said, Mama, do you remember we used to not even be able to afford a ticket to come here? And I said, I do remember.
Soak it up.
It was just an emotional time for the two of us. For him to be able to play in the big stadiums, you know, as much as he loved ball, I was just so overwhelmed with all of it. I don't think Jason ever thought things were going to get as big as they have.
After nearly 15 years of touring and thousands of sold-out shows, Jason encountered the unthinkable. A horrific event that challenged his own ideology as well as his very will to perform.
It was the worst night of my life. My wife, who was 7 months pregnant at the time, was at the show, and I was separated from her, so trying to find her and just getting her and the baby somewhere where they were safe, and then you just, you have a lot of different emotions going on. I mean, just heartbroken for families. As soon as it happened, we went back to the hospital, we visited with the victims, and, after that, it's like a week later, you're expected to jump back on stage and act like nothing happened, and it was rough. It was rough the first couple shows.
Every day that goes by, we think about the 58 people that lost their lives and everybody else who was injured in that thing and everybody who just was there, because even though people may not have physical scars, it's going to be a mental thing for a lot of people for a long time. And so,
did it make you afraid to tour?
It doesn't make me afraid to tour. It makes me very much aware of my surroundings now. It's the difference in getting on stage, not having a care in the world and doing my thing. Now it's you get on stage and you're looking. It's an experience that you just never forget.
Tragic circumstances are fear-inducing, stressful, but the effect doesn't have to be all negative. There's a way that these sorts of circumstances lead us to pay a little more attention than we otherwise might. There are some people who don't come alive until after they've had a heart attack. They finally feel mortal.
So Jason, has this made you think any differently about guns?
I definitely think some changes need to be made. I mean, I'm a gun owner, and I'm fine with going in and doing a background check and me having to wait for 30 days to get a gun. I'm perfectly fine with that. But I'm not gonna sit here and go, I don't think anybody should have guns, because at that point, the people that don't need to have them are still gonna find a way to get them, and the people that need to protect themselves can't get it. So that's not the answer. I just know that whatever is happening now is flawed and not working.
sometimes this country can be really divided, but it's been really cool to see all the support, all the love and support that's been going on over the last 10 days or so because of what happened in Las Vegas. And I just feel like if we could do that on a daily basis, man, the world would be a lot better place, I want this to not be something that's going to be a downer for the rest of the night. I want to play the show for you guys that the people in Las Vegas came to see and didn't get a chance to, all right?
Through all the adversity, fame, and tragedy, Jason has persevered and remains the same guy he was when he first picked up the guitar. He's still playing music his way, moving the genre and himself forward.
Life's short, man. Don't live in fear. That night, it's just something I'll always remember. But it won't keep me from doing what I do. No matter what happens, from here on out, I always go out and play my shows. And the best thing to do is just get through it, play it, and roll the dice. Lucky for me, I'm all about gambling, so I'm a gambler. I'll take it any day.
What do you like about Jason?
As a person, I would hang out with him. I wish I could, but as a person, no, he seems real down to earth.
He's down to earth. There's not many of them, anymore.
Do you feel like he's bringing rock and roll to country?
No.
He's staying country. That's what we love about him.
He's got his own style, man. It's the new outlaw fashion. It's not rock and roll.
Who are his fans? What kind of people are they?
Here you go.
Everyday, ordinary,
All of
blue
us,
collar,
every
get a
day.
paycheck, work hard for what we got,